Welcome back, everybody, to the show. So much to get into today. I want to tell you about what's going on in Texas, outside of Texas, and this panicked effort by Trump and Republicans to, instead of running a better campaign for the midterms or altering their policy positions or their messaging, just manipulate the system enough to gain more seats. But let me illustrate some of the context as to why they feel the need to do what then we'll talk about. And that's because this is just a fun anecdote, but it is representative of a broader data-driven truth, which is that public sentiment is turning way against Trump, even among some of his base. Not that they're going, woo, Democrats, but they're upset with him, which might make them less motivated to vote in the midterms, especially if Trump's name isn't on the ballot. And this comes from a WWE event where when Trump popped up on screen, I mean, it's not quite UFC, but that's WWE, right? You would think that's kind of a Trump environment. And I think he's gone to WWE events maybe before and got a positive reaction. Here, he pops up on screen and you'll hear the response. That was bleeped out. I think someone said a potty word to him. So a little bit of booze. There's some cheering, but a little bit of booze. And before getting into the real substance of this story, I guess at the same event, an actual brawl, not on stage, but in the stands, broke out. Which is the funniest concept I can possibly imagine. What are they brawling over? No, this guy's gonna win. No, this guy's the better fighter. No, I bet the determined outcome's gonna go this way, you little son of a bitch. Huh? You're gonna talk smack about the actor I like? Really? Or they're just revved up, all the fighting. I wanna kill you. And of course, this has shown up in the polling I told you about, and we've looked at that before. But then whenever Republicans are showing up to their town halls.
Style began his town hall in the town of Elkhorn with the Pledge of Allegiance, during which the crowd emphasized the last words, and justice for all. Striking moment there. Later, several attendees expressed their disappointment with the congressman, including one person who asked why he was not stopping ICE raids by masked agents targeting immigrants.
Why are they wearing masks and why are they unidentified?
We'll probably agree to disagree on some of my answer here, but what I view is the moral hazard created by the Biden administration by allowing the U.S.-Mexico border.
Oh gosh, that's I can't imagine how you would even handle that. Boo away, you suck, my constituents, I hate you. So that imagery, along with the data that proves Trump is just getting less and less popular, and along with him, you're imagining the candidates he's going to be backing, the agenda that they've supported is going to cause them to struggle in the midterms. If Democrats can get their act together, I hope they will be able to. And one example of them having a little bit more of a fighting spirit is that in the state of Texas, we've extensively discussed this berserko world gerrymandered map they're trying to push through mid-decade. So they're just trying to stick it in there before the midterms. Again, not to change the votes that they get by people's minds and their hearts, but just how the map is drawn to manifest more Republican congressional seats, getting 5 if they can pass this congressional map. And so because they're calling, Greg Abbott called a special session, one of the rules is you have to get quorum. You have to get enough members of the legislature to even vote on anything. And so Democrats, they can't just not show up to the session because then Abbott could get law enforcement based on the laws. to force them to come. So they have to flee the state. And that's what Texas Democrats have done to try to delay or block the passage of this gerrymandered map. This is just an attempt to manipulate the election results. Texas Democratic lawmakers flee state to thwart Republican redistricting effort. They have fled so that redistrict, and I should say again, gerrymandered, ridiculous bill that would benefit Republicans can't be passed. Dozens of Democrats fled to blue states so they can be safe, which is a pretty crazy story in a moment like this. And Mr. Greg Abbott himself went on Fox News and said, I think they're guilty of bribery. I don't know where he's getting that idea, but trying to threaten them into showing up.
You said in your statement that you put out today to all of them, in a letter to them, you said, in addition to abandoning their offices, these legislators may also have committed felonies. What is the felony? What are the penalties for this?
So very simply, it would be bribery if any lawmaker took money to perform or to refuse to perform an act in the legislature. And the reports are these legislators have been both, they sought money and they offered money to skip the vote, to leave the legislature, to take a legislative act. That would be bribery. And so the facts will have to come out. But I think based upon comments made by legislators and
yeah, the facts will have to come out is doing a lot of legwork there. A lot of legwork. Okay, Greg, try to bring that case, please. Do it. I dare you. Now, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who is housing in her state some of these Democrats, said, and this is very un-Kathy, okay? She said, this is war. Whoa. Kathy Hochul, hello. While we watch this, please do click the subscribe button if you appreciate the show. It's free, but it supports the channel.
These are profiles in courage sitting with me here today. They left their homes, left their families, left their loved ones in a world of uncertainty. But our history is defined by people who are brave patriots, will not accept the status quo, who believe they must use their voices and their positions to stand up for others. And I could not be prouder to have an opportunity to meet them, each and every one of them, and hear their personal stories. And I thank them so much for making this journey. You are on the right side of history. And you're not alone. Thank you. We are in solidarity with each and every one of you and your colleagues in another state, hosted by my great friend, J.B. Pritzker, who welcome you as well. As I said, history will judge us on how we respond to this moment. But here in New York, we will not stand on the sidelines with the timid souls on the sidelines who don't care, will not invest their heart and soul into this battle. This is a war. We are at war. And that's why the gloves are off, and I say, bring it on.
Kathy Hochul definitely sort of gives just the vibes of a generic politician, you know? And there's something funny about her specifically. It kind of would be like Chuck Schumer in the calmest of voices going, and these are patriots, and this is war. We are at war. We are in a war with this. It's like, this is a really calm way to make that announcement. Is that true? Now, I wish she had specified a little bit political war, like the not real one, right? Not real one. Please, not real one. And she means not real, but that's quite the statement. And this is the moment where you need to step it up. You have a Texas representative saying this in response to Abbott's threats.
I'm a lawyer. A part of my practice is criminal defense work. There is no felony in the Texas Penal Code for what he says. So respectfully, he's making up some shit, okay? He's trying to get sound bites, and he has no legal mechanism. And if he did, subpoenas from Texas don't work in New York, so he gonna come get us how? Subpoenas in Texas don't work in Chicago. He's gonna come get us how? So let me be clear. He's putting up smoke and mirrors, and I'm hopeful that the media doesn't follow that. I will also say this.
I have to find a way to use that phrase. Respectfully, you're making up some shit. Respectfully. With all due respect, You're making up some shit. Now, this is a good example of you got to do when Democrats don't have power in the state of Texas or at the national level right now. That doesn't mean that you can't show the type of fighting spirit that people want to see. And people just living their life, they're busy, they're working, aren't going to hear redistricting, everyone's gerrymandering. Who cares? What's the point? To really emphasize the moment that we're in, where they are, people are using the word rigged just because of how Trump uses that in crazy ways. I try to stay away from it. But as I said, manipulate the midterm outcome in this brazen way because Trump called up Abbott and asked for it. To call attention to that, you got to do some things. So if people call this a stunt because eventually they're going to have to return and eventually it'll get passed, they actually could delay it in a pretty consequential way, for one. But even two, as I've said before with other stunts that people criticize, if the stunt is calling attention to the damage being done, great, do it. And this is definitely calling more attention to it. And we need more Democrats who will speak in a way that meets the moment. I saw Pete Buttigieg was discussing something I worry about a lot, which is we're now in this world where a lot of voting decisions are being made off of voters' ability to connect on social media, on podcasts with the politician that's running. And so these old guard is maybe one way to describe them, or these typical, more stiff politicians aren't going to resonate. Now, how it is that Trump showing up on podcasts and doing the weave and talking anything from his uncle, being a chemical major and knowing Kaczynski and how he talked so highly of the Unabomber, even though the timeline makes zero sense on that even being possible, and that's not. And then flipping over saying he's going to fertilize everyone. He's the fertilization president. And then he jumps over and starts talking about Hannibal Lecter. How that compelled people, I don't know. But I think it's because however ridiculous we find it, a lot of viewers of those podcasts in the lead up to the 2024 election at least saw it as genuine and unscripted. And a lot of Democratic politicians are hindered by the fact that every time they talk, it feels like they're thinking through the lens of focus grouped catchphrases. Just everything has been focus grouped 5 times and 10 consultants have told you that's good to go. And that era is over because people aren't just learning of you through quotes in a newspaper or tight TV interviews. They want to connect with you as a person. And there are a lot of Democrats who are being floated in the upcoming election cycle that struggle with that way too much. I think that hurt Kamala a lot, that when she would show up in interviews, it would feel like she was speaking way too much on a script. And Buttigieg spoke to this.
This hesitation to go to different spaces and to talk openly is especially costly with younger voters. I think there's kind of a risk aversion that somewhere along the line just took hold among Democrats in terms of
Where do you think that comes
strategy.
from?
I think it comes from the experience of being blown up on digital media or canceled, so to speak, because you put a foot wrong. And it leads to this very human reaction of like, all right, I'm not going to do anything where I could put a foot wrong. And the problem with that is if you really want to talk in a way that you never say anything that'll offend anybody, you're not yourself and you're not going to sound like a human being, right?
If you never put your foot in your mouth, you'll never walk forward. It's a quote from somebody I heard. It's, if you never put your foot in your mouth, how will you know what it tastes like? Is maybe a different spin on it. And I think that's really what he's trying to get at. I just was able to summarize a little bit better than him. I get it. It's fine, but no, I mean, I saw someone else in response to that clip post this one where during one of these Jubilee discussions, a guy sat down with Pete and said, I seemingly am totally open to voting Democratic. I would vote for you, and this was before the 2024 election, but I feel like I don't connect enough with Kamala Harris whenever she speaks in those consultant-approved ways.
Hi. It's a pleasure. I'm Tim. It's really a pleasure to be up here. I would have voted for you in 2020. I would vote for you right now. I think you're fantastic. I agree with a lot of your views. I disagree with also a lot. Very middle-of-the-road person. Why can't Kamala...
If you're always in the middle of... This is actually a good one. If you're always in the middle of the two roads, then you're on the median. Wait, is that the word? What's the thing in between the two highways? A median? Median. If you're always in between the two roads, then you can't get anywhere, literally, physically with your car. Ooh, if you're always in between the two roads, you're going to hit a tree. Think about it. You got to pick one to drive on. And you can be real critical of the bumps in that road. You can hate that they haven't renovated it yet. Right? But at some point, you got to pick one to drive on. And one's going this way, and the other at least is going that way.
Answer some of these questions that you're able to answer. Why? Why? It's an oversimplification of a concept, but I feel like when I listen to her, I don't get. It's almost jumping back to the character. When you talk back when you were running, I hear genuine interest, feelings in your voice. I know what you want, and I know that when you say something, you really mean what you're saying. I don't ever get that sense. There were some times in the debate with Kamala that I got a sense of that, but since then, especially with some of the not as great, the town hall and some of the CNN stuff that. I don't know.
So one thing I point to is like she faces some constraints that I don't. Okay. Right. First of all, she's a sitting vice president. Right. So that creates a certain set of constraints. I also think just the advice that I know you get of things to be careful about when you're actually a nominee for president, and definitely when you consider the historic nature of her nomination, can also make it more challenging. She's good at things that I'm not. Every one of us is good at different things. Right.
So that was pre-campaign, so he's being a little bit more modest. But y'all know Stephen Chung. He's coined as being this, just don't pick a particularly unflattering photo. A lot of people make fun. I don't make fun of people's looks except for whenever I want to, but Stephen Chung is coined with being like a genius of communications for Trump. And he's long been with Trump. And I saw this whole piece about him that was examining the brilliance behind Stephen Chung. There he is. And what it boiled down to was just force all of the aides and the consultants to shut up and just let Trump be unhinged. That was kind of the conclusion of the article. That's his philosophy, is just let Trump be Trump, which I see as the more of Trump that I know, the more I realize he shouldn't be president. But in a time where everyone seems disingenuous, even the most disingenuous in the sense that he's dishonest, the biggest liar we've seen in politics, literally statistically, maybe ever, comes off as genuine because he's so not what the consultants would advise. And so we could take a lesson from that. Hey, let's not mirror any of the dishonesty, but let's allow people to just be what Trump fakes people into believing that he is, which is just relaxed, a person. You make mistakes, you say things that later you contradict constantly. Maybe they could do a little less of that, and that's what Kamala Harris, says strengths and weaknesses. One of her major weaknesses was she just really struggled to sit down and sort of long form interviews and just come off like she's chit-chatting, just chatting about things she cares about. And it would feel like everything was coming from a place of a script or being overly advised. And actually, a lot of people point to the golden era of her campaign earlier on and how there was all that excitement. And then by the end, that something changed. And they chalk it up to her kind of just in the heat of the moment. There wasn't time to craft a whole plan. Off the hook, it was a lot better. And then once she had the time to bring back in all the people who give you all this advice, it got more and more robotic. And people are just so averse to that in this moment. One thing I meant to show you earlier, someone on X called Sam said, just a reminder that in 2021, every single Democrat in Congress voted for H.R. 1 to ban gerrymandering, but Republicans unanimously opposed H.R. 1 and filibustered the bill. The parties are not the same. And that's the For the People Act. And so they have tried before, and some people will go, well, they knew they weren't going to get it passed, so they wouldn't actually do that if they had enough votes to get it passed. Why do we do that all the time? It's like, well, Republicans actually blocked it. So until Democrats have the power and then themselves block it, I think it's kind of a strange thing to direct it that way. But if they could, and this is what Kathy Hochul also talked about, she said, we're going to get rid of our own independent districting commission. Because they make it where it's less gerrymandered through that process, which is good for democracy, bad for power right now when Republicans are playing by a different rule book. So she's saying we're going to get rid of it. And then the idea is you get enough power and then you can actually pass something like the For the People Act, which again, I support that strategy. Share your thoughts on all that in the comments.